Okay, now everybody can see my screen. We're good to go. So, going back to assignments, there are quite a few different reasons to utilize them within the system. One of the big reasons to utilize them is this widget right here. This widget will display your assignments that are expiring in the next 60 days. And when we talk about assignments, and actually, sorry, let me back up a second. Your agents will have a widget that they can put on their dashboard that'll show them when their assignments are expiring, within the assignments they have that are expiring in the next 60 days. Okay, whereas you guys, or depending on your security level, you will see not just your assignments, but you'll see all of them across the whole company that are expiring. And so the idea is, we have some companies, and I'm sure it would never affect any of you guys, but we have some companies where the agents, believe it or not, won't have valid listing agreements. They don't have valid contracts, yet they're spending the company's money marketing in availability or something of that nature, and they don't have a valid agreement. Like I said, I know that would never affect anybody on the phone at their agents. However, some companies, believe it or not, have that issue. This then, they set up an assignment for every contract or agreement that comes into the company, and then they can keep track of which ones are expiring and when they're expiring. So that's one real good reason to utilize them. When we talk about assignments, typically an assignment equals a contract, or assignment equals an agreement. So you set up an assignment. That assignment is the contract that the agent brings to the company. Okay, let's say it's a listing agreement. That listing agreement, if it's a single tenant building or it's a building for sale, typically it's going to be a one-off deal. You have the assignment, then you have an availability that's linked to the assignment. Pretty kind of straightforward that way. But sometimes an agent will have a listing agreement for a multi-tenant building where their job is to lease 10 suites all within a specific building. Maybe an office building or a retail center or something. So the idea is each of those 10 suites will be in availability in the system. And all of those availabilities will then be linked to the one master assignment or master contract, if you will. Okay? So, going back to that, assignment equals the contract. When you look at the assignment will roll up. You can look at reporting on that assignment and look at lists in the assignment that will roll up all of the activity from the different projects that are linked to it. Remember, an availability is a project. A need is a project. A general project is a project. All of those can be linked to a master assignment. The master assignment will then roll up the activity. The roll-up is somewhat similar to way in contacts, the way a company record rolls up all of the activity from the contacts that are linked to it. The assignment rolls up all of the activity from the projects that are linked to it. And again, depending on what type of contract or agreement the agent got, that's going to dictate what type of projects are linked to that particular assignment. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to open up one right here, right from the assignments widget. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to choose this one. This is all fictitious data, but I wanted to show it to you because it has a lot of data. So if you notice, for example, this widget right here, top right, this is where I have my tasks, 5 most recent or the ones that are due next. I can look at them for just the assignment. I can look at the most recently updated ones, the next one's due. But look, I could also say all related deals. That will load all of the tasks, not just from the assignment, but from all of the projects that are linked to that particular assignment. So I'm going to hover over in the main menu here over deals, and I'm going to click on projects. And you can see there are 42 different projects that are linked to this one assignment. Okay, I have a tenant rep, so that's going to be a project. I've got some availabilities. I've got a lease renewal, all kinds of different stuff that's happening within this industrial park. Each one of these is a separate project. Some of them are availabilities. Some of them are going to be tenant rep stuff. Some are closed already. So the idea is this is a list of all of the projects that are linked to this one master contract or master assignment, North Bay Industrial Park. And I can look at all of the different activities and whatnot within the assignment, or I can look at them that are rolled up in a single list. I'm going to go back to the dashboard because I wanted you to see, for example, notes. Here's a widget right here that shows me the notes that are attached to just the assignment. But then I could also say all related deals, and now that's a roll-up of everything. If I hit view all, look, this is a list of all the notes and files. There's 290 of them. And you can see each of these is the different project. Some cases it's the assignment, but the different project that these notes have been entered in. And you could always group it by project if you want. There are lots of different ways of looking at it. But the idea is, again, I'm just trying to illustrate, this is a roll-up of all of the activity from the projects that are linked to it. You notice there's a padlock all the way over on the right-hand side of some of these. That indicates that these are private notes that have been entered. I'm going to go back to my dashboard of this assignment, and you can see the deals that are booked and have invoices. This is going to show you all the invoices that are attached to the projects that are linked to the assignment. You've got all the related availabilities and comps. You've got your needs, projects, related properties. Again, this is the contract. And then there's an assignment summary. And it can be the assignment and all related deals or just the assignment. But it shows you all the notes. It shows you all the tasks and events that have been added this month, the last 12 months, or total. And I can click on the number, and it brings me up to a list of those. So this is an assignment that has a bunch of information. If I hover, oh, and I have all the widgets turned on. You may want some of them turned off. Some of them might not be relevant for you. If it's a one-off deal, or maybe it's a multi-tenant building, you set up an assignment and the agent has to lease 2 suites within that building. So you have 2 availabilities. Both those availabilities are listed on the public website. They're in your system, but they're also attached to the assignment. In a situation like that, you probably don't need the needs widget. You probably don't even need the projects widget. You can turn some of those off. Simplify this as much as possible. But depending on what it is, what type of assignment it is going to dictate which of these you're going to want on there. If I hover over reports, there's a client profile report right here. Should look somewhat familiar to you guys, and this will show you all the notes that have been entered in the last 30 days, all the tasks, events that have been entered in the last 30 days that you choose to share with your client. Because remember, as you're adding stuff to any project or any assignment in the system, you have the ability to decide, do I want it visible on my client report, yes or no? Right there. Display on client reports. You're going to see that on pretty much every item that you put in. The idea is, if you don't want it to show on the report, you choose no. If you do, then you choose yes. Pretty straightforward that way. But the idea is, when you go into your assignment, and let me go back to it. When I go back to my assignment, this report will only show the activities and the information that you choose to show on this report from the last 30 days only. Now, when we say the last 30 days, we're talking about reporting. This report is an older report. You can tell just based on the style of it. It's an older report. It will be branded with your company logo by default. You can put your client's logo on here, project manager, it'll put their phone number, and then prepared for, that's your client, it'll put their phone number as well. Okay? I'm going to just copy this ID number right here, because I want to show you. We have other reporting that for the assignments that I think you're going to find much more useful. Right here, right from the assignments widget, if I click on this radio button, this widget dynamically will change to a pull down and let me choose to run some different reports. This is a report that I would think most of you will use more often than not. Landlord rep. It does want an ID number and for the assignment that you want to report on. But then look, see it says choose report selections to display and there's a little arrow. If I click on that, now you can see all of these select boxes as well as all of these date fields. So let me kind of spend just a minute and explain those. And I'm going to get into in just a couple minutes how to add the assignment. But before, I just want to show you this. This allows you to turn on or off different components of the report. By default, you can see they're all turned on. Okay? Now, the benefit of these date ranges really stems from that other report that I just showed you. When I said it displays information from the last 30 days. We had a lot of our clients come back to us and say, well, what if we want to show the activities from the last 45 days? Or just a week, the last week's worth? Or maybe everything. We don't want to be limited to just the 30 days. So here's the deal. This displays all of these activities regardless of the date as long as you have it marked to display on the client reports. It does max out, in this case, notes 25, tasks 10, recent events 10, marking activities 10. Okay, but the idea is with these date ranges, if you want to only show notes from a specific date range, you have the ability to do that. Same thing with the tasks, the events, the marking activities, the tours. You have the ability to dictate the date range that those activities will show up on the particular report. That other report I showed you, it's hard-coded. It's 30 days, that's what it is, that's the report. This lets you decide what date ranges you want. I'm just going to come down to the bottom and hit submit. You can see it's one of our new reports. It has this report header which allows you to run it in all of these different formats. Again, it does have your logo and your client's logo, but available spaces, here's some tenant prospect deals that you put in, recent lease transactions, lease expirations coming up, here's notes and files. And using those little select boxes that we saw, those allow you to turn on or off different components. Look, these all let you turn on or off different components of this particular report. So you don't have to go in and run it in Excel or in Word and delete out the sections. You could just unselect the box and different sections of the report will turn off when you run it. Okay? And this report happens to be 2 pages. If I click on the second page, there they are. There's tasks, events, marking activities. I don't have any tours scheduled, but then here's a summary too of the activities. I'm sure you guys would agree this is a much nicer report than that other one I showed you. And a lot more flexibility as to what you can do with this report. I'm going to close this and I can choose one of these others. This is a brand new report that was added in this past release that we just did in June. It's also, again, in the new format. Each of these is a different assignment in a specific location. Right? So if I want to open this up, I can click on the little plus sign, and now it will show me all the properties that are linked to this particular assignment. If I want to collapse up a whole location's worth, I can just hit the little minus sign and it closes up. Just a different type of report, but that's run off of assignments. Okay. So let's go ahead and no? Nobody has any questions at all? Okay, great. All right, So let's go in and let me show you the wizard and let me show you how you initiate or create an assignment. I'm going to hover over deals here, and here's my assignments. The new button is the green circle, so I'm going to click on that and it's going to open up a wizard. This wizard doesn't have a huge amount of tabs or a huge amount of information. Most of what you enter at the assignment level is once the assignment is created. It's the tasks, it's the calendar events, it's all of those different activities. And most of the time, you're not actually adding them directly to the assignment. You're adding them to the projects that are linked to the assignment. So all of you are already creating availabilities in the system. So you're going to continue to do that. The only difference is you can then link that availability to the assignment. And if there are multiple availabilities for the same building, if it's a multi-tenant building, then you're going to have the one assignment that's going to have all of the different available spaces all linked to it. Okay, so here, let's just do here. No. My goodness, I'm here. Dell computers. You do have the ability, just like with a project, to set up templates that you can put in predefined templates that will copy over all of this information. Just like with a project. I'm going to hit continue and let's go to the settings. You're going to see that this is very similar to those of you that are managing your availabilities as projects or are using the projects in the system, needs and general projects. This is going to be very similar. If I open up the admin settings, same thing. Assignment type, let's say this is a landlord representation. This is active. We have a signed agreement. Look, here's a contract date and expiration date. That's what's pulling it onto the widget that I showed you when we first got started. I'm not going to put in a start date and an end date because I have my contract date and expiration date. If it's a referral, I can put that information in. If I have a specific budget that I want to just put in here for this particular contract, if there's a budget, I can put that in. And building and if I want to put in my client's logo or a picture, I can. By default, your logo will be there. You don't have to do anything and your logo will automatically be there, even though it shows as blank. Same thing when you set up a project. If you want to keep track of any commission agreements, again, the assignment equals a contract. What are the specific agreement details of that contract, right? So what percentage? Well, I know that negotiated 5%. Or maybe it's a flat commission or $1 per square foot or acre or unit. Same thing. If you want to put that in, you can. There's a renewal. If you want to select this, that the renewal exists, you can. I know in California, I'm pretty certain in California as well as most states, the DRE doesn't allow, they don't acknowledge auto renewals anymore. It still happens, but they don't necessarily acknowledge that they're valid. But if you want to utilize this, you can. If there's a renewal option date and the note, you can put it in. And then for the listing, here are some details you can put in as well if you want. Quite frankly, a lot of people who set up assignments that are using them, they don't necessarily fill out these different components. But you can if you want. If you don't want to, you can always customize the form and get rid of the fields. You can hide them. Hide whole sections if you don't want them in there. I'm going to hit continue, and here's now where we're going to add our contacts. Pretty straightforward. As the creator of it, your name is automatically going to show up on there. Just like it does when you create an availability, or when you create a different type of project, or a closed deal. Whoever's creating it, whoever's logged in, their name shows up. Same thing's going to happen here. If the person initiating it has a different role, if you're the one creating it and you have a different role, you can just click on that and change whatever it is. The benefit of putting the people here, I'm going to show you in just a moment. And also the benefit of, if you incorporate assignments into your workflow, start with the assignment being the contract. And just a side note, I was training one particular company last week. With their workflow, they have to, their agents set up the assignment first, and they attach the listing agreement to the assignment. Once they get that listing agreement in, then their availability goes up on LoopNet. Then their availability gets entered onto their website. Then their availability gets entered into RE Apps. In other words, nothing happens with that availability until the agent has the assignment set up with a valid listing agreement in there. If there's no valid listing agreement, nothing happens. No sign is ordered, no postcards created. They're at a standstill. Their company will not let them do anything unless that agent has a signed agreement or a handshake agreement or some type of agreement. But unless they have that with the assignment, nothing happens. And that is approved by their broker, the broker hangs their license in the office. He signs off on every single one. Because they got burned a couple times where the agents didn't have valid agreements, and they said that's not going to happen to them again. So I just wanted to share with you just what one company does in terms of none of the other actions happen until they get the assignment set up and that listing agreement is attached to the assignment. Okay. So let me, I'm just going to add another person here. And we'll say he's seller and landlord, and we don't know buyer tenant yet. Okay, so I have my contacts entered. I'm going to designate, I've got Chris Bin as my project manager, primary salesperson, Joseph Smith is my client, my billing customer. If I have anybody else involved, I can put them in. I'm just going to hit save and continue. I come to the permissions, same as everywhere else in the system. This is where you can decide who gets to see it. I'm going to hit finish. And more often than not, guys, when you're creating records, you will be able to go through without manipulating the permissions, because the system, the logins and passwords that the users have, that'll dictate who sees the assignment and that sort of stuff. But here it is. This is my assignment that I created. Now, you can see I don't have a lot of information here. Here's my team and my key contacts. Okay, that's fine. But I don't have anything linked to it. If I use this as my starting place, when I want to create an availability now in the system, I'm going to create an availability from within the assignment. Now, you can always go to any availability in the system once it's already created. So I don't want, if some of you are thinking, this might be interesting, maybe I'll utilize this. I can go into any availability. Look, I clicked on edit in the colored ribbon. I'm going to scroll down to the very bottom of the admin settings. I can link it to an assignment after it's created. Your workflow doesn't have to be the assignment first, then the availabilities. You could create the availability first and then go back and link it to the assignment after the fact. You could do that if you wanted. But here's the benefit, in my opinion, of creating from within the assignment, creating the availability. If I hover, I'm within my assignment now. If I hover over property and I go to availabilities and I want to create a new one, this is the wizard that loads. Should be familiar to everyone on this call who's ever created an availability in the system. This is it. But look, do you see this? It says link to master assignment. If you create the assignment first and from within the assignment you create the availability is already linked, which is great. But then, do you see this? Select which information should be copied from the selected master assignment to this new record. The idea is, because we added the brokers, because we added the seller landlord to the assignment, when I create the availability, I don't need to add them, as all I have to do is select this little box. If you're managing your availability as a project because you want to keep track of the pipeline information on that, the deal settings is already selected for you. That will come over. That'll also come over even if you're not managing it as a project, that'll come over. And when you go to close the deal, when the space gets leased, those deal settings with the location and the business line and the status, all of that will already be populated for you. So because we created the availability from within the assignment, I don't have to re-add these. I could just select the box. And I'm even going to bring the permissions over as well. Hit continue, and now this is where you're creating your assignment. Or excuse me, your availability rather. So I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly here. More than anything, I just want you to see how's the information carried over. We'll say it's for the entire property. Oh. Why is it not letting me do the entire property? Okay. I'm not sure why it's doing that, but I'm going to just go ahead and select a space, and we'll just do that. Save and continue. We're just going to continue through all of this. All right, all of that to get to this. So you can see, here's my contacts. They're already brought over. Now, it added me here as a seller landlord, and I'm not quite sure why it did that. I'm going to have to check and see, because it shouldn't have. It should have added me not as a seller landlord, but it should have added me as a person creating the record. But in any case, I did want you to see how it brought over the people who we added to the availability. If I save and continue, here's my project settings. I said it was a landlord rep. I said it was active. It was signed agreement. Here's my business line and location. I didn't have any of this other information added. Had I, it would have copied over here as well. At this point, I don't have any pipeline data or deal share. I don't have any of that. I'm just going to hit finish. And that's my availability. If I close it and I look at my assignment, I'm just going to refresh the dashboard. Here's that availability now that's linked to it. As I add notes to the availability itself, as I add tasks and different marketing activities and different things to the availability itself, all of that will be rolled up into the assignment itself. So, are there any questions? No? No one has any questions at all?
Steve, when the listing expires, and let's say that it was a multi-tenant and it had 13 availabilities linked to it, to remove everything from the web, do you have to go back through all those availabilities and do publish to web no and close
yes.
it that way, or can
yep.
you close the assignment?
No, you have to go and do it the exact way you would without the assignment. That's a good question, Jamie, but you unfortunately you don't have one button that just closes all of them. You would, or takes them off the web. You would need to go into all of them. Just a side note, though, in a situation like that, and I know you just use it as an example, Jamie, but in a situation like that, for the availabilities, that would be a good place, if they all came off the market at the same time, to use your update selected tool and change the publish to web. But But realistically, if you have, a multi-tenant building, all 13 spaces probably wouldn't be leased at the same time unless one tenant took it. You know what I mean? But that was a very good question and a good example. Did everyone understand the question and the answer? Because that's important for you guys to understand that. Closing the assignment doesn't remove all the availabilities. So, any other questions? So I'm just curious. Well, I'm surprised there are no other questions, but I'm just curious. Are any of you using assignments that are on the call?
We are.
No.
Who said I didn't hear? Who said we are?
Newport started using them 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay. Great. Do you have a blanket policy, Jamie, that every agreement has to have one, or is it just if the agent wants to do it, they can?
No, we create it. We create the assignment for every listing now.
Oh, okay. Great. So for every contract, you guys are doing that. That's great. Did you set up templates, or are you finding that it's going pretty easy for you? I mean, seems relatively straightforward.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. The reason why we wanted to sit through it with you was to find out, there's a publish to web on the assignment as well as on the availabilities, I think, and we wanted to make sure we weren't double doing anything. We haven't transferred over our other availabilities and linked them to assignments yet. And the template thing, I don't quite understand what that is.
So do you know when we talk about templates as they relate to a project, what that is?
No.
Okay. So within the system, and my guess is you probably still have it in your system, Jamie, we added some predefined templates. Whenever we install any new system, we install some predefined templates. And the idea is with a template, here, so these are them. You can see they start with the word template. And they're pulled from SIOR's coursework. And we realize that it's just the standard ones we put in here, it's just for a guideline. It's not, we know that you guys, each of your offices does something a little differently than SIOR says you should do stuff. However, it's a good starting place that we put these generic ones in. But you guys can change. You can edit them. You can get rid of them. You can create your own. The idea is if you're using projects and you know that for every, and I'll use an availability as an example. For every availability that comes into the company, there are certain action items that happen for every availability that comes into the company. Doesn't matter what agent gets it. So, for example, you have to order a sign. You create a brochure. Maybe you create a postcard. You do an email campaign. Just using those as an example. But there are 4 different things that, let's say, happen every single availability that comes into the company. So you can set up the tasks beforehand. Order the sign, create the brochure, the email campaign. You could do all of that stuff, set those up beforehand into a template. Then when you create a new availability, you apply that template to it. So when the availability is created, the tasks are automatically there. All of those action items, like your listing checklist of things that happen, it's basically a way of adding a listing checklist to an availability without manually going in and entering in, order a sign, create a brochure, post the sign, create a postcard. All of those different activities, instead of doing it for each availability, you set it up in a template. When you apply the template, it copies from the template into the availability. Does that make sense conceptually?
Yes.
Okay. So that being said, with assignments, it's the exact same thing. If you know that when an agent gets a new agreement that comes into the company, that there's a series of action items or things that happen, you can set those up beforehand in a template so you don't have to recreate them for each contract that's brought into the company. I will tell you, though, that when a lot of people, and in my opinion, there are certain things that should be tracked at the assignment level, and there are other things that should be tracked at the availability level. because the assignment rolls up all of the activity from the availabilities that are linked to it, you're not going to lose the data. You can see that data that's entered in the availability. For example, if you have LOIs that come back on an available suite for lease, those I would say you would want to attach to the availability. If there's a flyer or a brochure, and it's a different brochure for each suite in the building potentially, I would add the specific brochure to that availability versus to the assignment file cabinet. If it's one brochure that encompasses, if there are 13 suites available in a building and there's one brochure for all of them, every single one uses the same brochure, then I'd probably add that to the assignment. But if there's a separate brochure for each availability, I would add it to the availability. If there are certain documents, floor plans, stuff like that, that are specific to the property record or specific to the availability, that's where I would attach them, not necessarily to the assignment. But with the assignment, you have the ability to look at all of the activity. You have the ability to look at all of the activity or all the notes that are attached to all the availabilities. So, does that, with the templates, going back to the templates, Jamie, the template copies over 3 components from the specific template. Those 3 components are the team. Okay, so if you know that you have a predefined team, you can set that up in the template. You don't have to add them each time. So the team, the tasks, and the milestones, if you guys use milestones. Most companies don't. I would personally like to see the milestones go away. I don't think they're used, and I think that the Gantt chart that's created from them isn't really all that great looking, especially compared to graphically what can be done nowadays. I don't think the milestones are really something that are utilized, but they will show up. They'll copy over from the template as well. So, Jamie, did that make sense? Okay, did that kind of clear up the confusion about templates?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And just because it cleared it up, I'm going to confuse you just a little bit with the template. Sorry. But I did want to mention that when you create a new project, you personally are logged in the system. When you go to the template pull down to choose a template, you will see not just the predefined ones, not just the templates that are, someone said, this is a template for anybody in the company to use that's setting up one of these new records, but you will also see all of the previous projects, if that's where you are, or if you're in assignments, all the previous assignments that you set up will all show up on your list. So when I look at this form and I go to the pull down, I see all of these different things. If one of you were logged into the same system and went to this form, your list would be different. If you've never set any up, the only thing you would see are these ones that start with the word template. The idea being, if I set up Ramsey Place a month ago or 6 months ago, and I have another project for the same client, or another assignment, another contract from the same client, I can go back to the one that I use, this Ramsey Place, and say, I want to use this as my template and copy all of these different components from Ramsey Place into my new one that I'm creating. So, I just wanted to point out that when you go to your template pull down, if you're looking at this and you're seeing names of things, you're saying, I didn't put those, I don't even know. You recognize the names because they're records that you previously created. But you're saying, I didn't set them as a template. I'm not sure why they're on my pull down. It's because you created them personally. If you haven't created any of that type of record, then your pull down will just have the generic ones on it. So hopefully that didn't confuse people more than you might already be a little bit confused. But I wanted to point that out because that does kind of get people sometimes where they're not sure, why am I seeing all these things in the list? And I didn't say use them as a template.
Keith, I have one more question for you.
Yes.
And it's unrelated to this subject, but so let's say there were 6 availabilities on that listing. So I now, again, just making sure I need to go through the assignment, I can get to all of those availabilities that are linked to it, right?
Yes, correct.
And so I can just go there and make them all unavailable, and then I also update the assignment to inactive or whatever that is, correct?
Yes.
I need to remember to not only remove my listings or remove my availabilities, but also to remove the assignment.
Correct.
Make it unavailable.
Right.
Okay.
And the only extra step that you have to do, and Jamie, you kind of said it good in that from your assignment, you can get to all the availabilities. So it's just an easy way for you to get to all the availabilities and mark them as, closed and published to web as no, and go through the closed deal process that you guys currently do. It's an easy way to get to the whole list right from the assignment without having to search for those availabilities through the availability section. But then, in terms of the extra step that you guys need to do is what you just described, is you're going to come in and what's the status of this? Well, it's closed, or it's pending, or, if it's a sale, maybe it's an escrow, or, you have all the different statuses. You can put whatever you want. But this indicates the contract. Is the contract closed? You're not going to want to close this or change the status until every last availability that's part of that contract has been leased, or buildings have been sold, or whatever work you're doing for them. So I think if everyone just remembers that assignment equals the contract, you're still going to do what you were doing with your availabilities. That has not changed at all, not even a little bit. The only difference is, rather than going to availabilities to search and find them, you can get to them all right from the assignment pretty easily. Right from here, or, you can go this way. And this is your list of availabilities that need to be closed out. But that's the same thing that you're doing now. The difference is going in then and changing the actual contract and saying, this contract has now been closed. Every different component is done. It's like when you take the deal file and you're completely done with it and you put it in the file folder or the file cabinet and you're done with it. You pretty much are not going to need to go to that file cabinet and pull that deal folder again. You might need to, and same thing in here. You're going to close it out just like putting the file in the file cabinet, but then if you need to get back to it, you would get it electronically versus going to the actual file cabinet and pulling out a hard copy of it. Does anybody have any other questions? No? Okay. Well, I hope you guys found this beneficial.
Keith, I have a question. This
Yes.
is Caroline.
Uh-huh.
Just because I don't use assignments, and I think to me, and the reason why I was on this call is because I wanted to see, okay, is there a benefit to doing this? For us, we attach all of our information, like our listing expiration, all of that stuff on the actual availability.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, this seems like a lot of extra paperwork, so to speak. So can you tell me why I'm wrong?
Well, because when you want to see what listings are going to expire, what do?
I run a search in RE applications on availabilities with listing expiration. And
Okay. And that absolutely works. If you wanted to do that versus just looking.
Sorry, that was me.
Okay. If you wanted to do that versus just looking at the widget on your dashboard without doing any searches or anything, just opening up your system and going to the dashboard, that's one reason.
Yeah. We run reports for our agents monthly on all of their listings that are about to expire. So, going to the dashboard and seeing however many that it shows there on the widget for us, we've got a lot more than that. So it's kind of like we would have to run the reports anyway.
Well, yeah. If your agents are logging in, if they're utilizing the system, they would have visibility. You wouldn't have to run reports for them because they would have visibility into their own. But it doesn't.
But the problem is, though, is that even though they see it, I'm just saying from our standpoint, even though they see it, they're not going to do anything about it unless we tell them to.
Okay. Well,
So,
and in
I
your
mean, so
situation, it might not work for you. It doesn't sound like, the reporting, though, is also something else. The reporting, the agent reporting that they can give to their clients, that's the main benefit, more than anything.
Carolyn, I was kind of looking at it more that we have so many multi-tenant projects where
mhm,
even the multi-tenant encompasses 5 different buildings on
mhm.
different streets, and to be able to roll all of that up into one package for the agent to see everything that's been happening on their entire listing agreement instead of only being able to see per availability. Um,
So, so do you use business park development field? Because we do kind of the same thing, and they'll say, "Oh, give me all of my recent leases that happened at this park." So I
right.
just go in and I'll do a comp search on the business park, and then it pulls everything up.
We only use it when they don't, it's not always, wow, I'm thinking that it's me, but I don't know why that noise is happening.
You know
Um,
what? It could be me because we got construction going on in the office. I've been on mute the whole time though until I
oh,
started talking.
um, the, there's not always a business park name for they don't always give a business park name. We're going to start creating one even if there isn't one.
Mhm.
Um, I kind of like it as just a really quick snapshot of when the listing expires and there's 7 different availabilities on that listing, being able to quickly go there and making sure that an availability does not somehow get missed.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point, Jamie. One of the other things, Caroline, in terms of utilizing, like Jamie said, if you think about it, that right now, when your agent gets a contract, you guys, again, you have a file folder, a hard copy file folder is created. This is essentially, and Jamie even described it perfectly, having one place to go and see everything in there. It'd be the same as if the agent said what's going on and you pull the physical file folder and you open it up and you're going through each of the listing agreements to see when they're going to expire, and you're going through each of the different all the different activities and everything that's in that folder. This lets you do that electronically.
Yeah, see, and we do that, but we do it on the availability or the comp level. And so we don't actually have hard copy files of anything anymore. So we store like our listing agreements and our leases and our purchase contracts either all on the availability or the comp. And then if we have a business park, like we have a business park with like 50 different listings, I just link it all up using the related to.
And that's it's just it's another way of going about it. But I think that utilizing the assignments, especially for a situation like that, for the reporting, the agent needs to report to their owner, where they can do that all in a single report. I think that's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the agents would have to want to use it then.
Right. I mean, that's
So,
absolutely, if the
yeah,
agents,
yeah.
if they're not going to use the reporting and they're not going to use it to look at the expirations and everything else, then sounds like for you guys it just might not be a good fit. But I
No, we've
think,
had a couple guys that have used assignments and projects and things like that, and like, and a couple, I mean two. Um, so
Do more than
I
us.
mean, yeah. So I mean, they tried it, and one of them retired, and the other one I think kind of gave up.
well,
Um, so I don't. I mean, would it be an option if I had some people that were interested to do like maybe a broker webinar?
yeah, absolutely. Well, I
Is
mean,
that, I mean, just because maybe like they'll see some value out of this that I'm not, and and I show them if they say, hey, can I do this? I'm like, yeah, you can do this in our apps. You can do like your whole timetable thing, your assignments, your notes, do all the reporting and all of that. And they're like, okay, great. And it seems like they try it out, and then they're like, it's too much work.
Yeah.
yeah. And absolutely fair enough. I mean, I think, you said, Caroline, you had two people that utilized it in the past. One of them retired and the other one just kind of gave up on it. But since then, I don't think we had any of these reports since then. I don't think we had, a lot of
Yeah,
the other components of the assignments that we have now.
yeah, there's definitely a lot of new stuff in it, which may make it a little more, appealing, I guess, to the guys to use.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm just thinking that maybe a broker webinar would be good. I don't know. What do you think? What does everybody else think?
I think if I even had my agents logging in, that would be the first step I have to get before I had a broker webinar. I didn't even have people logging in really yet, just to even see their top deals. Or I do, however, know, because my agents haven't had the luxury of all the experience and training that you've already given your agents for REF, that quick being able to see their listings thing, and their own expiration, and being able to click on it and see within that listing lease expirations that are coming up, for deals that they've already created, or that we've already created, that have already closed within that listing, because we've had listings that have gone on for 12 years or however much long. That would be super beneficial for them.
Yeah, and that's honestly what most of my guys use it. They use it. They love the broker statistics. They want to know where they're at. They use it for comps and availabilities for, those areas that we're tracking, and they do. They look up we actually send them a report of their lease expirations every month. But, for like 50% of my guys, that's what they do. I have another 25% that basically just log in to see like where they're at in the office, and then I have another 25% they're like, what's REFs?
Right.
So that's kind of like where I'm at, I guess.
Well, Caroline, I'd be more than happy to do a broker webinar, if you will, to show them the assignments and show them. I mean, the big thing is the reporting, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's a major thing, is show them the reporting. And the good thing is, if you do have to initiate them, you saw there are very few fields when you're creating the assignment that you have to do.
Right.
Very few fields at all. And then I also think the benefit of creating the availability from within the assignment, then you're not rekeying in the contacts, you're not rekeying in the deal settings, all that stuff comes over for you.
Yeah. But I mean, it would be us that's doing it and not them.
Right.
So, like we don't let them create availabilities and do things like that. So they could create their assignment, and then we would basically have to go in and like do our part.
Right. Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Then and that scenario I told you with that client that I trained a couple weeks ago, that they don't do anything until they have a signed listing agreement. That's the only part that the agent has, is initiating the assignment and attaching the listing agreement. Other than that, once they're done with that, then it goes and it's taken by the marketing assistants and stuff like that. But the agents do have to make sure that they get their listing agreement in and it's signed off by the broker who hangs his license in the office.
Yeah, we do the same thing, except they just scan it and email it to us, and then we get the various signatures, or I don't
Right.
know what else does. But then once it's all fully executed, then it goes to me.
Gotcha.
And then we do our thing. So
Right.
we've kind of got, like, I guess, the same procedure.
Yeah, we have that procedure as well.
Yeah, sounds like the workflow is pretty similar. The difference is you're doing it, you're setting up that deal folder in here. So, it's not for every client, but I will tell you that we are building more and more reporting, assignment-centric reporting, and assignment-centric functionality. That's I think it's going to be, you're going to see it just getting more and more enhanced. And so it's one of those things that maybe it doesn't work for you, but after some more enhancements and stuff like that, you'll decide, well, maybe it does. But then again,
a major enhancement, Keith, would always be, I know it's somewhere in the being worked on, but would be the assignment expense tracker.
yeah, the expenses. Yep. And that is something that is, you're right, that is something that's going to be done. Um, so that is an enhancement that's going to be done in the system. And again, that's just going back to the contract, being able to track money against the contract and how much is being spent to see, based on the commission, if it's worthwhile or that sort of thing. But, if you also kind of familiarize yourself with it now and maybe start to use it, maybe not for every deal, but for like the scenario that Jamie laid out where you have a multi-tenant building with a bunch of available suites, if there's a 2,000 square foot one-off deal, do you need to set up an assignment? Probably not. But if you have a multi-tenant building with a bunch of suites available, that's where it might be more relevant for you or more applicable. I think it just depends on the type of transaction that you're working on as to whether or not it's going to be worthwhile. If you don't want to create a broad brush rule that says for every contract that comes in the company, you have to create one. I mean, you don't have to go to that level, but you may want to say for certain types of transactions, it makes sense. And those are the ones that you set up. So the more you familiarize yourself with it now, you're kind of an early adopter, if you will, before this newer and more functionality comes out revolving around assignments. But at the same time, again, it's not necessary for every particular deal that you're working on or for every particular office. So hopefully, though, based on what you saw, you'll be able to make a decision if it is going to work for you or how you want to incorporate that. But Caroline, you just have to let me know in terms of a webinar for the agents. Maybe it's the type of thing that we get corporate to sponsor again and open it up to all offices and any agents that want to participate.
Yeah, I mean, I think it may be a good idea. Let me see how much interest I have.
Okay.
Get back to you, and it may not be tomorrow or next.
Yeah. Well, definitely not.
Down the road.
Yeah.
But if anybody else, I don't know if anybody else has an interest in having their brokers do that or not. I mean, I wouldn't want it done just for me.
6 months down the road, we would, Caroline.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe we'll revisit it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's worthwhile, though, Caroline, to maybe ask some of your agents that do that office agents or retail agents that do a lot of multi-tenant buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
To see, if it's something that might be worthwhile for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
I'll run it by a few guys and see what.
Okay.
Thank you, Keith.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, my pleasure. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to post the video up on YouTube and